You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
Hey everybody, Dave here. I've talked about Delete Me before, and I'm still using it because it still works. It's been a few months now, and I'm just as impressed today as I was when I signed up. Delete Me keeps finding and removing my personal information from data broker sites, and they keep me updated with detailed reports, so I know exactly what's been taken down. I'm genuinely relieved knowing my privacy isn't something I have to worry about every day. The Delete Me team handles everything. It's the set it and forget it peace of mind. And it's not just for individuals. Delete Me also offers solutions for businesses, helping companies protect their employees' personal information and reduce exposure to social engineering and phishing threats. And right now, our listeners get a special deal, 20% off your Delete Me plan. Just go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K.
Today is July the 18th, 2025. I'm Alice Carruth, and this is T-Minus.
T-minus 20 seconds to LOS egress. Go for deploy. Roger roll.
L3 Harris Technologies plans to construct an extensive large solid rocket motor production campus at the company's site in Camden, Arkansas.
4.
Astroscale US will test rendezvous proximity operations and docking capabilities of its refueler spacecraft at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center.
3.
Viasat has selected SSTL and MDA Space to partner with on developing designs and proposals for a lunar orbiting communications satellite system.
2.
York Space Systems parent company plans to acquire Atlas Space Operations.
1.
The United States Space Force has rolled out its new principles for space access resourcing decisions. Every Friday, our partners at nasaspaceflight.com bring you the latest space traffic news, rounding up the launch stories from the last 7 days and taking a look at what's scheduled in the coming week. So stick around after the headlines to hear more on that. We're kicking off with an update from the US military on access to space. The United States Space Force has rolled out its new principles for space access resourcing decisions, which they say are an essential part of their commercial space strategy. The new document outlines how the Space Force will consider and prioritize commercial space sector requests for government resources, as well as government investment decisions. It covers 9 principles rooted in law that will guide the assured access to space enterprises' decision-making on a variety of resourcing decisions. The Deputy Chief of Space Operations for Strategy Plans, Programs and Requirements, Lieutenant General Sean Bratton, said in the press release that, quote, "These principles reflect our understanding that a strong commercial space industry is a force multiplier for the US Space Force. We are committed to working alongside our industry and allied partners to ensure safe, reliable and resilient access to space for decades to come." The document outlines how the space access landscape has evolved from the government being the anchor customer to missions with commercial payloads accounting for majority of the launch manifest activities. It says that the Space Force's finite monetary, property and infrastructure resources are not only critical to assuring space access for national security, but also benefit broader space access needs in ways that ultimately support national security and government objectives, i.e. the main spaceports in this country are still federally owned and operated. Therefore, the Space Force should consider the effect on the US commercial space sector when making its investment and resource utilization decisions regarding space access, including, but not limited to, acquisition strategies, funds allocation, and property agreements. Ultimately, in making resource decisions, the US Space Force will prioritise meeting national security requirements, but says it is committed to continuing to foster and integrate the space launch industrial base's innovation and capacity to strengthen national security and increase the nation's competitive advantage. You can find the full document linked in our show notes. Mergers and acquisitions are hot in space right now. Yesterday, we led with the completion of SES's acquisition of Intelsat. Today, we have the news that York Space Systems' parent company plans to acquire Atlas Space Operations. Atlas provides ground software as a service for satellite communications, and the acquisition will provide York with a software-led ground architecture that they say will deliver secure, mission-ready space systems at unmatched speed and value. The press release also stated that Atlas will play a key role in York's Golden Dome architecture. The acquisition of Atlas is pending FCC approval and other customary closing conditions. Once approved, they say that Atlas will continue to operate independently under its existing brand, serving its portfolio of customers across the space industry. Heading over to my home nation now, the UK, Viasat has selected SSTL and MDA Space to partner with on developing designs and proposals for a lunar orbiting communication satellite system. The collaboration will begin working on the European Space Agency's lunar communications programme, Moonlight. It's hoped that the system will greatly enhance combined navigation and communication services for European and international missions, both on the surface of the Moon and in lunar orbit. Viasat is working with the Moonlight program lead, Telespazio, and is responsible for the design and development of the communication network, the definition of end-to-end communication service, the communication space infrastructure, Earth ground infrastructure, and the communication lunar surface user terminals. They're also working with the UK Space Agency, and now SSTL and MDA Space UK will help develop designs and proposals for a range of advanced technologies, infrastructure and network requirements needed to establish the future Moonlight satellite system that meets service, schedule and business case requirements. The Moonlight communication system is targeting initial capacity by 2028 and full operations by 2030. Astroscale UK has signed a reimbursable Space Act agreement with NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center to test rendezvous proximity operations and docking capabilities of the Astroscale US refueler spacecraft. Astroscale US will test its refueler at Goddard in preparation for Astroscale US's 2 refueling operations of US Department of Defense satellites in geostationary orbit for the US Space Force. The Space Act agreement enables Astroscale US to validate the refueler spacecraft complex RPO and docking maneuvers with high fidelity. Testing of the refueler spacecraft at Goddard is expected to conclude next month. L3Harris Technologies has announced plans to construct an extensive large solid rocket motor production campus at the company's site in Camden, Arkansas. L3Harris says it's investing nearly $500 million across its major production sites to support solid rocket motor production. The new campus will include more than 20 buildings across 110 acres and will add more than 130,000 square feet of manufacturing and office space to the broader 2,000-acre energetic production site. That site currently employs around 1,300 local team members. The production facilities are expected to provide a 6-fold increase in manufacturing capacity. L3Harris expects to begin construction of the new facilities this year and anticipates production beginning in 2027. That wraps up our headlines for today. Stay with us for NASAspaceflight.com's Space Traffic Report. But before we get into that, N2K's producer Liz Stokes is joining us to tell us about the stories that didn't make today's top 5. Liz, what do you have for us?
We have 3 additional stories that are worth reading up on. NASA has opened registration for its International Space Apps Challenge. Intuitive Machines is working with San Jacinto College on their curriculum for space-based pharmaceutical work. And students from the UK's University of Surrey are in Oman ahead of their payload launch from the Etlak spaceport.
All great stories, Liz. Where can we find more information about them?
We include links to the original sources of all of the stories we mentioned throughout the show in the selected reading section of our show notes. Those links can also be found on our website, space.n2k.com. Just click on today's episode title.
Thanks for that, Liz. Hey T-Minus crew, tune in tomorrow for T-Minus Deep Space, our show for extended interviews, special editions and deep dives with some of the most influential professionals in the space industry. Tomorrow we have retired NASA astronaut Bill MacArthur talking about his career and his new role at Titan Space. Check it out while you're travelling on vacation like our host Maria is, or catching up on chores around the house like I am. You don't want to miss it.
You hear from us here at T- every single day. Now we'd love to hear from you. Your voice helps shape the future of N2K Networks. Tell us what matters most to you by completing our annual audience survey. Your insights help us grow to better meet your needs. There's a link to the survey in our show notes. We're collecting your comments through August 31st. Thanks. Did you know Active Directory is targeted in 9 out of 10 cyber attacks? Once attackers get in, they can take control of your entire network. That's why Sempris created Purple Knight, the free security assessment tool that scans your Active Directory for hundreds of vulnerabilities and shows you how to fix them. Join thousands of IT pros using Purple Knight to stay ahead of threats. Download it now at sempris.com/purple-knight. That's sempris.com/purple-knight.
I'll hand you over now to our incredible partners at nasaspaceflight.com.
I'm Sawyer Rosenstein for NSF, and this is your weekly space traffic report for T-Space. Starting off the week on July 13th, we had a Falcon 9 launch from Florida. Its 9 Merlin engines ignited at 5:04 UTC to lift the Israeli Dror-1 communication satellite into space. The satellite was built by Israel Aerospace Industries and is also described as a smartphone in space that is expected to provide communication services for military and civilian purposes for 15 years. SpaceX used booster 1083 for this mission, which flew for the 13th time and ended its mission by successfully landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Over in China, a Changzheng 7 lifted off from Wencheng, carrying a cargo resupply mission to the Tiangong space station. The 9th Tianzhou spacecraft lifted off on July 14th at 21:34 Universal Time and arrived at Tiangong about 3 hours later, bringing 6.5 tons of supplies. Among the delivered cargo are science experiments, 2 new and improved EVA suits to be used on future spacewalks, and 1 new exercise machine. Tianzhou also carried 1.5 tons of food, increasing the station's menu to over 190 choices. It seems the Chinese astronauts won't have to complain about the food anytime soon. From Tiangong, we go to the International Space Station, which saw the departure of the Axiom 4 crew on July 14th. After saying their goodbyes to the station's Expedition 73 crew, the 4 astronauts boarded Crew Dragon Grace, ready for their return to Earth. During their 2-week stay on the station, they worked on over 60 science experiments and studies. This was the 5th space mission for Commander Peggy Whitson and the first for her 3 crew members, pilot Shubhanshu Shukla of India, mission specialist Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniowski of Poland, and Tibor Kapu of Hungary. The 3 first-time flyers were the first to fly to space for their respective countries since the 1970s and 80s. Crew Dragon Grace undocked from the zenith, or space-facing port, of the Harmony module at 11:15 UTC. Just over 22 hours later, Grace splashed down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California, marking the end of a successful mission. Speaking of California, a Falcon 9 lifted off from Vandenberg on July 16th. Encapsulated in the rocket's fairing were 26 Starlink V2 mini satellites to be added to the Internet constellation. The booster for this mission was B-1093, which successfully ended its 4th mission after softly touching down on the deck of the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. SpaceX has now launched a total of 9,213 Starlink satellites, of which 1,222 have returned to Earth, and 6,938 are currently in their operational orbit. Just a few hours later, SpaceX launched another batch of Internet satellites from Florida, but this launch wasn't for Starlink. It was SpaceX's first launch for Kuiper, Amazon's Starlink competitor. So why is SpaceX helping out the competition? Well, Amazon didn't originally want to launch on Falcon 9, but its shareholders essentially forced it to buy some launches from the world's most prolific launch provider. Plus, SpaceX has been launching Internet satellites for other companies for years, so it's really nothing new. Lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40 at 6:30 Universal on July 16th, Falcon 9 carried 24 Kuiper satellites into orbit. This was the first flight for booster 1096, which successfully landed on the drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. For some reason, Amazon is still secretive about showing the satellites and their deployment, so we didn't get any second stage views. But weirdly, they did release an image of the payload adapter after all the satellites were deployed. The mission brought the total number of Kuiper satellites launched to 80. This includes the 2 demo satellites launched in 2023, which have since re-entered. Going into next week, it looks like we'll have 4 Falcon 9 missions, 2 from Vandenberg and 2 from Cape Canaveral. One of the missions from Vandenberg will launch NASA's Tandem Reconnection and Cusp Electrodynamics Reconnaissance Satellites, or tracers for short. These 2 satellites will study the Earth's magnetic field and how it interacts with the solar wind. Ultimately, this should help NASA and scientists better understand how space weather affects our planet. One of the Falcon 9 missions from the Cape will launch a pair of communication satellites to medium Earth orbit for the O3b M-Power constellation. The other 2 Falcon 9 missions scheduled for the week are Starlink missions, but you probably guessed that already. Finally, there's a Soyuz launch scheduled from Vostochny. This one will lift the final 2 satellites into orbit for the Ionosphera M constellation of 4. These will study Earth's ionosphere and magnetosphere from sun-synchronous orbit. And that's everything planned for next week. As always, schedules might change, so keep your eyes on our next spaceflight app and website for all the latest updates. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein for NSF, and that's your weekly space traffic report. Now, back to T-Minus Space.
We'll be right back.
Krogel is AI built for the enterprise SOC, fully private, schema-free, and capable of running in sensitive air-gapped environments. Krogel autonomously investigates thousands of alerts weekly, correlating insights across your tools without data leaving your perimeter. Designed for high availability across geographies, it delivers context-aware, auditable decisions aligned to your workflows. Krogel empowers analysts to act faster and focus on critical threats, replacing repetitive triage with intelligent automation to help your SOC operate at scale with precision and control. Learn more at krogel.com. That's CROGL.com.
Welcome back. We end today's show with the sad news of the passing of Felix Baumgartner, the Austrian skydiver best known for his record-breaking 2012 jump from the edge of space. While he wasn't an astronaut or an engineer, his contributions to the space conversation were significant. His jump from 128,000 feet was more than a stunt. It was a demonstration of the extreme limits of human endurance and a testbed for high-altitude pressure suit technology. The Red Bull Stratos mission helped to inform safety systems for future space travelers, especially in emergency scenarios involving high-altitude egress. His leap offered valuable insights into how the human body responds to near-space conditions, including supersonic speeds and extreme altitudes. The data collected helped aerospace organizations and even NASA reevaluate safety designs for high-altitude pressure suits. While his work wasn't commercial or defense-oriented, it echoes through today's innovations in astronaut gear, suborbital tourism, and space-based rescue systems. Felix Baumgartner died in a motorized paragliding accident in Italy, but his legacy lives on, especially in my adopted home state of New Mexico, where he performed that record-breaking jump. May he rest in peace. And that's it for today's T-Minus, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. We have a survey running until August the 31st, which is linked in our show notes. And if you like the show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. We're proud that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of many of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K helps space and cybersecurity professionals grow, learn, and stay informed. As the nexus for discovery and connection, we bring you the people, technology, and ideas shaping the future of secure innovation. Learn how at n2k.com. Our producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm N2K senior producer Alice Carruth. Our host Maria Varmazis will be back from vacation later this month, but thanks for sticking with me until then. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.
T-Minus. Hi, Kim Jones here. On CISO Perspectives, we get candid with the thinkers, doers, and trailblazers shaping cybersecurity leadership. No scripts, no sales pitches. Just real stories and hard-earned lessons from folks who've been there. If you're looking to grow as a leader, or just want to hear how others are navigating this ever-evolving field, listen to CISO Perspectives. It's your seat at the table.
Hey everybody, Dave here. I've talked about Delete Me before, and I'm still using it because it still works. It's been a few months now, and I'm just as impressed today as I was when I signed up. Delete Me keeps finding and removing my personal information from data broker sites, and they keep me updated with detailed reports, so I know exactly what's been taken down. I'm genuinely relieved knowing my privacy isn't something I have to worry about every day. The Delete Me team handles everything. It's the set it and forget it peace of mind. And it's not just for individuals. Delete Me also offers solutions for businesses, helping companies protect their employees' personal information and reduce exposure to social engineering and phishing threats. And right now, our listeners get a special deal, 20% off your Delete Me plan. Just go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K.